Families seeking space, versatility and low running costs from their next vehicle have a ready-made candidate in the form of Peugeot's partner Tepee. This revised Euro 6 version has been further distanced from its original Mark I predecessor's basic commercial roots, with smarter styling, more equipment and the high-tech option of more efficient Blue HDI diesel engines. As a result, this value-for-money 5 or 7-seater is now a vehicle that demands to be taken very seriously indeed.
So, would you buy a van-based mini MPV? Once, and not so very long ago, the idea of strapping your offspring into the back of something designed for parcels or plumbing equipment seemed a little odd. But, as with so many things, time has brought much greater acceptance of the idea. It helps, of course, that the product has become much more car-like. Take, as an example, the much improved Peugeot partner Tepee. This is Peugeot's version of Citroën's hugely successful Berlingo multi-space, so even if you haven't heard the name before, you can rest assured that you're buying into a well-established product. This one is better known as a commercial vehicle, but it's also quietly sold in reasonable numbers for Peugeot in this passenger-carrying guise. Those van-based routes meaning greater practicality and significantly lower prices than more car-like and conventional compact MPVs like the French brand's own 5008. Competition, though, in the van-based compact MPV segment is getting tougher, especially for a product like this one that's been around since 2008. Ford, for example, has got serious about this market with its Tornado Connect range. Fiat has substantially revised its spacious Doblo range, and Volkswagen has significantly updated the other main player in this segment, their Caddy Life model. Hence, the clear need for the improved Euro 6 partner Tepee lineup that we're looking at here. It features a package of enhancements also made to that Berlingo multi-space model that I just mentioned. These including extra equipment and a slightly sleeker look. The key change, though, lies with the installation of Euro 6 Blue HDI diesel power plants that are unsurpassed in terms of running cost efficiency in this segment. Peugeot reckons that these engines will revitalise the appeal of this car. Are they right? Time to find out by putting this value-orientated contender to the test. It's hard not to approach a drive in a van-based MPV without preconceptions, but try to put them aside here. We'll start with the best thing about it, the way it handles our country's terrible tarmac. Now, vans are usually defined by a very firm standard of ride, courtesy of stiff suspension needed for heavy loads. And on that basis, this affordable French people carrier could hardly be described as particularly van-like, for the soft, absorbent ride quality is one of the best things about the driving experience it offers. This comes courtesy of car-derived underpinnings that hail from last-generation Peugeot 308 and Citroën C4 Picasso models. That's an important thing to consider. After all, we reckon that aside from safety and practicality, ride quality needs to be one of your key criteria when making a decision on any kind of MPV-style vehicle. Too firm, and you'll never manage to get the kids off to sleep on a long journey at night, and too soft, and they'll get car sick. This Gallic people carrier strikes a good balance because it's a little softer than you might expect in what the engineers called compression and rebound, in other words, over the bumps, but a little firmer than you'd think in roll, in other words, around the corners. For what is quite a tall, high vehicle, there's certainly none of the tippy feeling through the turns that characterise the first generation version of this design, helped in no small part by beefy anti-roll bars. So this car can be relaxing to drive, even if somewhat understandably it can't be a rewarding steer in the way that, say, a car-like MPV such as Ford C-Max can be. Although things would be better in this regard if it weren't for the rather vague steering. Still, just how important are dynamic attributes in a vehicle of this kind? Well, you be the judge, but we'd suggest that things such as refinement are of greater importance. And how does that compare against an ordinary car-like MPV like, say, a Citroën C4 Picasso or a Peugeot 5008? Again, not too badly, I'd suggest. The interior space you get in one of these is greater, of course, so you will get a little more noise reverberating off the walls, but engine noise, tyre rumble and wind draw have been all reduced to manageable levels, which is just as well, for these small differences actually have a big effect on how fresh you feel at the end of a long journey. Engine-wise, there have been important changes beneath the bonnet of this uprated Euro 6 model, but the structure of the range remains much as it was, which means that you get a 95 brake horsepower 1.6 litre VTI petrol unit at the bottom end of the lineup, but from then on it's diesel all the way. To be frank, the petrol engine only really makes sense if you're a low mileage owner. On longer trips, the extra torque you get from the diesel, 40% more even from the feeblest variant, really tells. And there's a choice of 3 Blue HDI engines, all of them 1.6 litres in size, with 3 different outputs, 75, 100 or 120 brake horsepower. The base Blue HDI 75 variant is a distinctly leisurely thing, taking 15.1 seconds to reach 62 miles an hour from rest, which is one of the reasons why almost all buyers opt for this unit in 100 brake horsepower form. This pokier unit makes 62 miles an hour in 12.4 seconds en route to 103 miles an hour, and is interesting insofar as it's available with either the expected 5-speed manual gearbox or the rather more exotic 6-speed ETG6 robotised manual transmission. The ETG6 box requires a little bit of practice to drive smoothly, but it does return slightly better fuel consumption and emissions figures. And if you're routinely driving in traffic, then your left leg gets a well-deserved rest. There are even steering wheel paddle shifters, although I doubt you'll feel like an F1 driver at any point. At the top of the range, the punchy 120 brake horsepower engine is the only one mated to a manual gearbox with 6 speeds rather than 5, and is the power plant to choose if you plan on doing any towing, or if you just like a car that makes mincemeat of typical overtaking manoeuvres on the motorway. It really surges nicely through the gears on a plump wave of torque, and will get to 62 miles an hour in 11.4 seconds on the way to a still rather modest top speed of 109 miles an hour. But then this vehicle does have a bit of frontal area to present to the airstream. Other things to note, well, the manual gearbox doesn't like to be hurried with a rather long throw between ratios, but, well, then, this isn't any kind of sports car. More importantly, all-round visibility is very good, with particular credit going to the enormous mirrors. Along with a relatively tight 11-metre turning circle and the vast glass area, it all makes town driving much easier than you might expect. This improved second-generation partner Tepee model gets what Peugeot calls a more assertive design, with the front end now emphasised by this chrome-framed grille with the Peugeot lion as its centre. There's also restyled front bumpers too, and the result, the designers hope, is to give the vehicle a greater sense of robustness. Those bumpers are tougher than before, with reinforced protection that allows them to shrug off small knocks, and a design that allows them to be easily replaceable in the event of a more serious impact. They house the front fog lights and the LED daytime running lights that give the vehicle a distinctive visual signature. There are even aerodynamically designed door mirrors, which are supposed to help reduce fuel consumption and CO2 emissions. Details count, you see. And in profile, well, yes, you'd never mistake a partner Tepee for anything other than a converted van, even if it's a very nice one. But then, is that necessarily such a bad thing? As we'll see in a minute, the big, square, boxy shape gives you much more room inside than ordinary compact MPVs can offer. Then there are these side-sliding doors, which are so much more practical than the conventionally opening items that kids so often use to dent and scratch adjoining vehicles in tightly packed car parks. Out back, it's van-like too, although Peugeot has tried to dilute that feeling by specifying this model with a one-piece tailgate rather than the asymmetrically opening twin rear doors you get on the commercial van version of this model. To be frank, twin doors will be much easier to use. This massive tailgate not only takes quite a lot of strength to lift, but it also needs quite a lot of space to complete its raising motion, with the result that in, say, a tight multi-storey car park, you might not be able to access it at all. Aware of that, Peugeot offers this useful opening rear glass section, but unfortunately only fits this element of design to the most expensive variants in the model lineup. this feature really should be standard, or at very least optional, across the range. I should point out that when you do get the full tailgate open, there is a benefit to it being so big, namely that it provides quite an effective canopy under which you can corral your kids if, say, you're dropping them off at school in the rain and they're getting all their bits and pieces together from the boot. Peugeot also says that it's one of the things that make owners go off and do things like tailgate picnics. That sounds more like a French thing to me. But we're getting off the point and ignoring one of the key things here, namely the enormous amount of luggage room on offer. Let's take a closer look at boot space. Now, provided you haven't filled it with the 2 extra 6th and 7th seats that come with the optional 7-seat pack, then the cargo area is vast. With the rear parcel shelf in place, a total of 675 litres will be available, but that rises to 1,350 litres if you load to the roof. If you want to extend that, you can fold down these second row backrests and do so in individual stages, provided you've got yourself a version fitted with the 3 individual row 2 chairs that I have here, and that'll give you 2,650 litres of space. If you're in a removal van state of mind, then you've the option of taking out these second row seats completely, assuming you're strong enough of back and you have a garage to store them in. Do that, and the potential load space of 3,000 litres means your partner Tepee could swallow 4 washing machines. And you can release even more space if you flatten the fold forward front passenger seat, something that might enable really long items to be carried. A kayak, for example. Now try doing that in a Zafira Tourer, a Scenic or a C-Max. I should also point out, with the necessary racks fitted, you can take up to 100 kilograms on the roof. Time to take a seat at the wheel, which is where the contrast between this modern partner Tepee and the utilitarian original is probably most marked. The early version's Spartan wipe-clean black plastic is today replaced in top second-generation variants like this one by softer touch surfaces that combine with the smarter seat material and the dashboard trim of this revised model. There's also now the potential for most of the kind of high-tech features that a more demanding modern family might now want. Take this top version's 7-inch touchscreen and DAB audio system, which comes with the option of satellite navigation system. This infotainment package is one of the key additions to this enhanced Euro 6 model, and it's a nice setup, although it could have been better integrated by being angled up and towards the driver rather than being set flat and flush to the dash. What is welcome, though, is clever so-called mirror screen functionality that can replicate your mobile phone's handset's home screen on the dashboard display. All very car-like then, although LCV touches do remain. The steering wheel, for example, betrays its commercial origins by being a touch more upright in stance than the kind of thing you'd normally find in an MPV, but at least it adjusts for both reach and rake. Otherwise, though, the driving position is good, aided by a height-adjustable driver's seat. As ever, all the controls are clearly marked and fall easily to hand, especially the gear lever that sprouts neatly into your palm from the dash. And I love this extra mirror fitted to this plush Allure variant that enables you to more easily see what your kids are getting up to behind you as you drive. As you might expect in a van-based MPV, practicalities are well provided for, with cubbies and storage bins absolutely everywhere. All models get this full-width shelf above the windscreen for lighter items only, assuming you don't want to be clonked on the head by, say, a bottle of drink during an emergency stop. Bottles fit neatly into door bins that offer special mouldings for the purpose. Plus, there's a 4.1 litre lidded compartment hidden away beneath the steering wheel, a glove box that's rather small and not lockable, and a tray beneath the driver's seat. Plus, a 13 litre centre storage between the seats if you go for this top Allure model. There are a few things you have to get used to, though, like the unusual sighting of the electric window switches on the dashboard rather than on the doors where you'd normally expect them to be, and the way that the USB socket is hidden away in the passenger footwell. And there are also 2 curious, but at first glance rather useless, circular compartments in the centre of the dash, apparently there for the horizontal storage of small bottles. Talking of interior storage brings me to what is probably my favourite feature in this car, the optional Zenith roof, which offers up to 94 litres of ceiling-mounted space in an ingenious central storage area featuring 4 large, light-loving glass panels. Apparently inspired by aviation, this package gives you a roomy locker above the boot, and it also provides an air freshener system that works with the individual vents to spread a subtly scented atmosphere around the cabin. Additionally, the Zenith package gives you roof bars which can be secured longitudinally or transversely as required. As before, standard partner Tepee models are 5-seat models only. The rear cabin accessible by these sliding side doors I mentioned earlier. If you're happy with base active trim, you can pay extra for a 7-seat pack that'll give you a couple of extra fold-out and removable seats in the boot, although these are really only intended for smaller folk. This second row offers enough space to suit a wide variety of passenger shapes and sizes. Here we've got the 3 individually folding, tilting and removable rear seats that I'd say are pretty essential to the whole partner Tepee experience. You get them with this top Allure trim level. If you've opted for lesser active spec though, you'll only get a basic bench, unless you pay extra for that 7-seat pack that I was just talking about. These individually folding, tilting and removable chairs can recline for greater comfort on longer journeys. Or if there are only 2 of you, it's possible to fold forward the backrest of the centre seat to create a picnic table with built-in cup holders. Either way, rear seat passengers should be pretty comfortable, especially when it comes to headroom levels fit for the carriage of the most elaborate headgear. Now with these 3 individual seats, this becomes one of the few sub 20,000 miles cars capable of comfortably transporting 3 fully sized adults on longer journeys in decent comfort. They'll be well looked after too, with individually controlled ventilation and additional lighting. Features like aircraft-style seatback tables are welcome, and all models offer storage provision that includes 2 floor compartments designed to keep valuables away from prying eyes. Time for a bit of guidance through the partner Tepee model lineup, which is a bit simpler to get a handle on than that of its Citroën Berlingo multi-space design stablemate. Our prices range from just under £15,000 to just over £19,000, and there are 2 trim levels, Active and Plusher Allure. It's probably best to avoid the old tech entry-level petrol 1.6 litre VTI unit, almost all buyers do, and restrict yourself to one of the Blue HDI diesel models, specifically perhaps the mid-range Blue HDI 100 engine. We'd suggest that the sweet spot in the range would probably be an active trimmed model fitted with this power plant. That's a car requiring a budget of around £16,500. Peugeot obviously thinks so too, deciding that this is the only variant in the model lineup that can be specified with the optional 7-seat pack that many potential owners will want. Another reason for sticking with base active spec is that it also gives you the £550 option of automatic transmission, provided that you're happy with that Blue HDI 100 diesel engine I just mentioned. Of course, there are many potential buyers who will be quite satisfied with a manual model and a 5-seat configuration, in which case they could well be tempted into a plusher Allure trimmed variant like the one I have here. Now, there are certainly some advantages to choosing the ritzier package, for it alone gives you the option of the pokier Blue HDI 120 engine and the extra cost Zenith roof with its glass panels and interior ceiling storage. Onto the value proposition that all of that represents. Now, in base petrol form, this Peugeot is quite a bit more expensive to buy than its near identical PSA Group stablemate, Citroën's Berlingo Multispace, but that is only because the standard spec of the Peugeot model includes the air conditioning system that you would have to do without in the petrol-powered Citroën. When it comes to the diesel engines that most buyers will want, there really isn't much price difference between the 2 cars. Both models, we should point out, are priced very similarly to the 2 other main players in this segment, Fiat's Doblo and Ford's Toyota Connect. But these 2 are nothing like as efficient to run as this partner Tepee would be. Other van-based compact people carriers are not only less economic, but they're also much more expensive to buy. You'll need a £20,000 budget if you're to consider cars like Volkswagen's Caddy Life, Nissan's NV200 Combi or Mercedes' Citan Travelliner. Of course, this Peugeot's proposition looks even better if you're comparing against conventional car-like MPVs. The cheapest diesel partner Tepee would save you over £2,000 on an equivalent Citroën C4 Picasso and around £4,500 on an equivalent diesel Ford C-Max or Toyota Verso, and around £5,500 on the cheapest diesel Renault Scenic. So let's say you've been through the comparison process and decided that there really is simply no need for your family to spend significantly more than this model would cost on a more conventional and apparently more car-like compact MPV. What will you get from this partner Tepee as part of the asking price? Well, quite a lot actually. Let's start with the fact that at this level you get a couple of essentials. Air conditioning, pretty important with all this glass, and 3 individual seats in the second row rather than a basic bench. There are also welcome inclusions like LED daytime running lights, front fog lamps, powered front windows and mirrors, remote central locking and a cruise control with a speed limiter, which will help preserve your licence through roadworks and urban areas. Inside, you'll find a height-adjustable driver's seat and carpeting in the boot, along with practical features like a luggage cover, underfloor storage compartments for row 2 passengers, and also an overhead front storage shelf. There's also a decent quality stereo with steering wheel controls and an aux-in socket in the glove box. Standard inclusion of the real niceties, though, is reserved for the top-of-the-line Allure spec that I'm trying here. 16-inch alloy wheels, rear-tinted glass, longitudinal roof bars and body-coloured exterior detailing combine to give more of an upmarket feel. Plus, there's the extra convenience of things like aircraft-style seat-back tables for second-row occupants and an opening tailgate window. Allure customers also get auto headlamps and wipers, a reversing camera, power folding mirrors and front and rear parking sensors, along with practical touches such as a front seat armrest and a drawer under the driver's seat. Most notably of all, perhaps, at this level, you get the 7-inch infotainment touchscreen display that is a really key addition to this improved Euro 6 model. It comes with Bluetooth phone compatibility, a DAB radio, hard drive music storage, a USB socket and the option of satellite navigation. On to options. Now, I've already mentioned several. The 7-seat pack with its third-row seating and the clever Zenith roof. Beyond that, we'd be looking at the family pack with centre storage console, blinds on the rear side windows and the additional rear child mirror that lets you keep a close eye on what the little horrors are getting up to in the back. Other popular options include things like metallic paint, an onboard Wi-Fi system and the usual dog guards, tow bars, roof racks, cycle carriers and load nets that you would expect to be able to specify on an MPV. On to safety. Not before time, Peugeot has at last got around to including ESP stability control as standard on all models. There's also an ABS braking system with EBD, electronic brake force distribution, to make it more effective, and EBA, emergency brake assistance, to help in panic stops, which will be advertised to following motorists by automatically activating hazard warning lights. Isofix child seat fastenings, a proper full-size spare wheel, tyre pressure monitoring and hill start assist to stop you drifting backwards on uphill junctions also make the team sheet right across the range. There are only 2 airbags fitted to the base active model, although the dual side and curtain bags that are standard with Allure trim are optional. Now, if you want to go further, you can also talk to your dealer about an optional active city brake system that scans the road ahead for potential accident hazards as you drive at urban speeds of under 20 miles an hour. If one's detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond, or you aren't able to, then the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. So let's say you've bought this sensible French people carrier, you've wisely ticked the boxes for the important optional features, and you're now wondering whether you've made a sound financial choice. Well, let me help you put your mind at ease. Firstly, a little perspective. This is a relatively inexpensive car, so straight away you're limiting your financial exposure. And secondly, it's reassuring to know that residual values on this second generation model have held up really rather respectably. After 3 years, an entry-level diesel variant typically retains around 35% of its new value, and that's about the class average for a vehicle of this type. This partner Tepee model's day-to-day running costs are kept well in check, but they're not shown in their best light by the entry-level 1.6-litre petrol-engine VTI version, a car that returns an unremarkable CO2 figure of 148 grams per kilometre and a combined fuel economy reading of 44.1 miles per gallon. Most, though, will want a diesel, where the news is much better. All three of the volume 1.6-litre Blue HDI units should be frugal to run, with the entry-level 75 brake horsepower derivative managing 65.7 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 113 grams per kilometre of CO2. The 100 brake horsepower model betters this showing because it's fitted with a S&S start-stop system, there to cut the engine when you don't need it, either stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Now, with this setup fitted, the combined cycle figure improves to 68.9 miles per gallon, and the CO2 showing is enhanced to 109 grams per kilometre. Figures that'll be the same whether you order your car with a manual gearbox or with the ETG6 automatic transmission. The S&S setup is also standard on the Peugeot 120 brake horsepower variant with its 6-speed gearbox. Here, 64.2 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 115 grams per kilometre of CO2 is possible. It all means that across the board with this Euro 6 model, you're looking at a car that's about 20% cleaner and more frugal than it was before. So how have the PSA Group engineers achieved such big efficiency gains? Well, with Blue HDI diesel technology, the answer lies in a clever 3-step after-treatment system that's designed to better eliminate the 4 nasty pollutants that diesel units usually put out, namely unburned hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides and particulates. Now, the first stage sees the unwanted hydrocarbon and carbon monoxide elements converted into harmless water and carbon dioxide. In the second stage, that nasty nitrogen oxide also gets converted into water via a selective catalytic reduction process using a urea and water mixture called AdBlue, although you do need to get this mixture topped up every 12,500 miles. And finally, in the third step, a particulate emissions filter eliminates virtually all particulates at a stroke. Now, the result of all this is industry-leading diesel technology that many manufacturers are struggling to copy. Anything else? Insurance groupings for the Blue HDI diesel start at 10E for the 75 brake horsepower model, and you're looking at groups 14E or 15E for the 100 brake horsepower model, or 17E for the 120 brake horsepower variant. Go for the 1.6-litre VTI petrol version, and it's group 10E. Finally, there's the usual 3-year, 60,000-mile warranty, including a year of Europe-wide roadside assistance. Commercial-based MPVs have genuinely come of age. The Peugeot partner Tepee, like many of its direct rivals, is proof positive of that. Today, vehicles of this sort are certainly a very different proposition from the vans with windows that originally characterised this segment. And if that's your perception when it comes to vehicles of this sort, then you need to change it. Or perhaps you simply need to try a partner Tepee. Get a well-specified one, and features like the slick multimedia system and the ritzy glass roof will impress. Yet at the same time, it's still the sort of car you'd happily chuck a couple of muddy mountain bikes into the back of without worrying too much about the upholstery. In other words, it's a kind of family MPV you can really use. Yes, there's a price to pay for the extra sophistication that comes with this class of car these days, but even with that taken into account, an MPV of this sort will still save you plenty over the more usual car-like people carrying contenders. But if realising that sells you into the idea of this kind of model, then would this Peugeot be likely to make your final shortlist? We think it might. Like its design stablemate, Citroen's Berlingo Multispace, this car is well priced and decently equipped, and thanks to Blue HDI technology, no other rival in this segment can better this pair when it comes to offering an efficient set of running costs. We'd also be tempted by the 7-seat pack option for ultimate family flexibility. If you've a friendly local Peugeot dealer and the price is right, it could all be enough to seal the deal for what still remains one of the most versatile vehicles that sensible money will buy.